Hey guys, Bridget here. In this video, we're going to get a full overview of how to use WEBFLOW. So this video is going to be perfect if you're a complete beginner with WEBFLOW and you want to learn everything that you need to know in order to create your very first site from scratch, or even if you already have experience with WEBFLOW, since you're going to find the timestamps at the bottom of this video in the description, and you can easily go through the elements or the sections which you might want to learn. Now, I myself have been using WEBFLOW for the past 6 years, and as a full-time designer, it's great to have all of the capabilities to create a really well-constructed website in a fast and efficient manner. And WEBFLOW is a tool which enables you to do that. So without further ado, let's get started with this tutorial and let's learn everything that you need to know about WEBFLOW. All right, so we're now in the official WEBFLOW website, which is webflow.com. And this is going to be where you're going to go and create your very first account. Now, as you can see on the top right, you see this button, which is Get Started for free. And the very first thing that you want to do is to enter an email which you're going to sign up with. And in this case, I already signed up, so I won't go through the entire process. But essentially, one thing that you want to do is to just follow the instructions on the sign up flow, which it's going to take you just 1 or 2 minutes. It's really straightforward. And after that, you're going to be redirected to your main WEBFLOW dashboard. Now, the dashboard is going to look like this. And here we have a few of my recent sites. This is the second account that I have. I do have a few more also with different clients. And essentially you can see here the recent sites. So if you have more, you're going to see them over here. You can also filter them by date created, alphabetical order, or last modified. And you can also create folders, which are going to enable you to basically add different sites inside of a specific folder. Over here on the top, you're also going to be able to see your personal account as well as the teams which you're connected with. Or if you want to create a team for a particular client, you can do it directly from here. So overall, this is pretty easy and straightforward. And what we're gonna do in this case is we're going to create a brand new site so that we can actually jump in WEBFLOW and start using it. Now, as you can see, as I'm creating a new site, it's taking a moment as it's syncing up all of its resources. And here we're presented with a few options. So the very first one is going to be to basically start with a blank site, and then the other ones are going to be to use one of these presets websites in order to start from in order to avoid starting from scratch. Essentially, you're going to be able to leverage one of these templates, which you can click on preview in order to see if this template is working for you. And as you can see, they are pretty much live wireframes, so they do have some basic hover effects and whatnot, but everything is kept pretty basic so far. And over here you can see also the purchase templates. If you have purchased any templates, you're going to see them here if they're linked to this specific account. And over here below, you can also find new templates as well as free templates. And I would highly recommend you to check out, for example, the free templates. Sometimes you can find one of these which are going to save you quite a bit of time. So if you click on free templates, you're going to be redirected to the main templates store, which again has free templates and also paid ones. And you can find so many really good looking layouts directly from here. So you can just select one, see it in the preview. If it's something that you like, you can easily just use it for free and then this is going to basically redirect you to the actual site. Now, in this case, what we're gonna do is we are going to start from scratch, and I'm actually going to link to another account, since as you can see on this one, I need to upgrade the plan. So let me do that and I'll be right back with you. So actually I'm back in the original account, and the reason being is that I want to show you some features and things which are going to be really useful for your learning in a current website. So I'm going to basically create a new page, and in your case what you want to do is to go under new site and select blank site, and after that you're going to be redirected to your new site, and the page is going to look just like this one right here. Now let's explore the basic WEBFLOW interface. On the side you're going to find all sorts of different elements which are going to enable you to manage and build your pages. So the first one, which is going to be one of the ones which we're going to use the most, is going to be the add elements feature. And as you can see, you're going to find all sorts of different elements. So let's get started with a practical example. And what we're gonna do is we're going to use a section, which, as you can see from this question mark right here, which you can find in pretty much every element. So if you want to learn more about the different elements, they have these interactive videos, which are snippets as well as text. And so I highly encourage you to go one by one and really maximize your learning by listening to this. But essentially a section is a div block that extends across the full width of a browser window. So this is going to be great in order to lay our structure. And as you can see, now we have our section. In order to confirm this, you can go on this element here, which is called the navigator. And you're going to see in the navigator all of your elements, and essentially this is going to be your source of truth when it comes to the page structure. So over here we have the body, of course, which is going to be the entire containing element of the web page. And here below, you're going to find this section which we just created. Now at this point, what we're gonna do is we're going to add a new element, which is going to be a container. And so let's click on the container. As you can see, now we have this container, which the difference between the section and the container is that essentially a container, as you can see here, is a div block with predefined styles to keep your content centered. So on bigger screens, containers default to 940 pixels of width, and on smaller screen devices, they fit the full width of the screen. Now, why this is helpful? This is particularly helpful because a container enables you to contain elements in a page in a very fast and efficient way. It's just a handy tool which you're going to use in order not to make the content span across the entire width of the browser viewport width. So what we're gonna do next is we're going to put the container inside of the section if it isn't already. As you can see, it is, but we can move these layers around just like in your favorite design software, such as Figma or Photoshop. And if you want to bring the container again inside of the section, you can simply click on it, drag it, and you're going to basically nest it inside. And this is important because you're going to nest and also unnest elements all of the time as you're building your projects. So let's go ahead and let's create our very first element within the container itself. We're going to add a heading, which as you can see here, it's under the typography section. And all of these elements can be easily just nested inside. And we're going to bring and drag and drop the heading inside of the actual container. Now, as you can see, we just added the heading, and as we click on it, you can select if you want this to be an H1, an H2, an H3, H4, H5, H6, and so on. And later on, we're going to discuss how to create classes that are going to be applied to these headings and any typography really. So if we get started with mentioning this part, you can see here that we have the selector item. So once an element is selected, you're going to be able to find here. So first of all, you can add a class such as special heading, and this can be any name that you want. And these are essentially CSS classes. So if you're familiar with those, it's pretty much CSS classes. So if you click on enter, you're going to apply this class to the heading, and this allows me to basically change and attribute any particular styling that I want to this heading without affecting any other H1s which I'm going to have on the page. So let's go under add. Let's add a new heading. As you can see, we have a H1 heading, and the reason why the H1 heading is not using this color and size is because we applied a special class. But if we delete this class, you can see that now the default applies. And the defaults, you can change them by selecting the HTML tags. And basically after that, if you change one size or any other attribute really of that specific heading, you're going to change it throughout the entire website. So all of the H1s are going to apply to that specific style. So we started to explore some of these elements on the side, and we started to talk about classes. But now let's do one thing. Let's revert this to the original, and let's start adding some other elements such as paragraphs. So as you can see, you can add a paragraph, and now let's also add an image right here below. So if you add an image, you're going to be presented with this window right here, which enables you to basically select an image from one of these images which you already uploaded. And if you haven't uploaded anything, let's go over here. I'm going to basically drag and drop this on the desktop, and I have this JPEG image right here on the desktop, which I can literally drag and drop. So as you can see, add to asset manager. And the moment that I drag and drop this image onto the file, you're going to see that it's going to upload, and here we have our image. Now here you can see all sorts of different elements and informations about this image. First one being the file name of the image. The second one is the size of the image, which as you can see, it's not recommended to have an image this size, especially in the weight, which is 719 kilobytes, which is too heavy for the web. So one thing which I highly recommend you to do whenever you're dealing with images on the web is to shrink the weight, and you can find all sorts of different tools on Google. I'm not going to endorse anyone in particular, but if you Google something like reduce image file size tool on Google, something around those lines, you're going to be presented with plenty of tools which are going to enable you to shrink both the size and the weight of the images, so that you can have images which are compliant with basically the best SEO practices for Google. But not only that, also for your visitors, it's just a great UX practice to have fast loading websites. Over here, you can also decide if the image is going to be in HI DPI, and this is going to enable to render at high resolution. Just consider that you're going to need to have a big image in order to leverage this. And over here, you can also set a specific number of pixels if for whatever reason you want to do so. So just useful tools to keep in mind overall. Now another thing which is useful is basically this resize option. So if you go here, you're going to see this small square on images, and it allows you to resize the image directly from your visual editor. Now another thing which is useful is the preview mode. So the preview mode, as the name suggests, is going to enable you to view a preview of this website. Now the great thing about WEBFLOW is that you're not only going to be able to work with the desktop version, but of course also with the mobile versions. So you can see here that you can select the tablet, which is 991 pixels and down, and by selecting it you can easily see the tablet version and also the mobile landscape and the mobile portrait version of it. Now a really cool feature about WEBFLOW is that whatever viewport you are on, you can actually change the elements to that specific viewport. So for example, if I want the element to be very small in the mobile landscape, it's not going to affect also the other ones if I apply a specific CSS class. So let's do an example which is going to be even more clear. If I apply a specific class to this heading, so let's write responsive heading, and I'm not endorsing this as a practice, but just to showcase an example. Let's go ahead and let's make this heading red. As you can see, in the desktop and in the tablet version, the heading is still black. But once we go on the tablet version, or actually the mobile landscape version, you're going to see this heading in red. Now, you might be wondering, hey Pierre, why is there a heading red in the tablet, in the mobile landscape version, and also in the mobile portrait version? And the reason being is that if you studied CSS, you know that CSS stands for cascading style sheets. So it basically works in a cascading fashion, and if you apply something at this point, it's going to be applied also to these other two views, as well as if you apply something on this viewport, it's going to apply to this one as well. And on this one, of course, we don't have any sizes which are smaller, so it's going to just be that one. So if we change it from purple, for example, you can see that the mobile landscape is pretty much untouched. So this is going to give you a basic understanding of the most common tools which you're going to use. Now let's also mention really briefly some other typography elements which you're going to use all the time. First one being the text link. And the text link, as the name suggests, is going to enable you to add a URL. So let's go back to the desktop version. We're going to make this guy quite a bit bigger. So as we go on the preview, you can see that this is a clickable link, but as we click it, you're not going to be redirected anywhere. So the reason being is that we haven't set the link to basically link to anywhere. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to set the URL, for example, to youtube.com, and we can select if we want to open it in a new tab. Now another option which we have at our disposal is you can select to link to another page in the website. So for example, this is a website which I have over here, and I can select any page to be linked. So for example, if this is in the home screen, this could be contact and connect to the contact screen and so on. You can also link it to a page section. So if you create a CSS ID to a specific element, and you can easily connect that CSS ID to be basically synced up with this one. And also on top of that, you can easily add an email connection or a phone connection or a connection to a attachment which you might have, so you can download a file. In this case, let's do it on YouTube. Let's click on open in new tab. So as we click on the preview, you can see that the moment they click on this text link, it's going to be redirected to YouTube. So pretty handy, and it's just good practice to use the text link whenever you can. On top of that, you're going to consider also having buttons which present themselves with the same elements as the text link. So if you want to learn about the buttons, just rewatch what we just mentioned a moment ago, as we're going to explore all of these elements. So this is pretty straightforward. We're going to go on and talk about styling in just a moment, but let's go on with the very next element which I want to discuss, which is the text block. And the text block it's just a text that needs some styling. So a very simple text, and the block quote, as the name suggests, is going to be for things that need for text that need particular emphasis. These might be testimonials, this might be maybe quotes, as the name suggests, and things of that nature. And we also have the rich text, which is really useful. And one of the issues which you have with Webflow and dealing with headings and text in general, and is that sometimes you need to create like multiple of these instead of having it in one element. And the rich text block, if you see on the navigator, is just one element which contains multiple different elements. So it's going to be really easy to work with the text block or the rich text block, since you can simply go and click enter. You're going to see this plus. As you see this plus, you can add images and all sorts of different things directly onto this element. So you can add videos, you can add this, in this case it's code, location, and bullet points or number points. So this is going to be really useful if you're going to create a blog page, for example, since you're going to want to sync all of this to a given CMS. So this is something to absolutely keep in mind. Now let's move on and let's continue exploring some of the other useful elements in the Elements panel. So the very next one is going to be the video, of course, because this is another element which we're going to see quite a lot. And you can add the URL to a Vimeo video, or you can simply go on YouTube and just extract one of these videos right here and just add the URL. And as you're going to see, the video is going to upload. Take a moment. You can actually change also the title of the video. Now, if you change the title, you're going to notice that the actual video title is not going to change, but in the background, or actually in the backend, basically it's going to adapt accordingly. Now, you can see now that this video is applied full width, and the reason being is that if you go to the navigator, you can see that the video is below the section and it's not inside of the container. And one quick tip is you can click on the collapse all, and you can basically collapse all of the elements within one web page in a very fast and easy way. Now, another important thing to consider on WEBFLOW are the pages. So if you click on pages, you're going to be able to find all of the different pages which create this website. And nested within each and every one of them are folders. So if you click on the folder, you can expand or basically contract the different pages which are in the folders. And if you scroll down to the very bottom in this case, you're going to find the page where we're currently at highlighted. And in order to change the settings of the page, simply click on this cog icon, and you can change the name of this page to, for example. I can change this flag, which is the URL. So in this case, it's uploaded on my personal website, which is gitodesigns.com. As you can see, it's /untitled. If you want to change this and change it to sample, you can simply change the flag over here, and you're going to be able to change the URL. And on top of that, you can also change and make this page the home page if you want to set it as a home. I'm not going to do that in order to avoid messing up the site, but it's a very quick and easy change. On top of that, you can also add a password protection to this current page. So if the page has sensible data and you just want to share it internally, you can enable this feature in order to add a password, which you're going to have to send to the other person who can access the page. And once he or she enters it, it's going to be able to access the page. Now let's talk about some useful things for SEO. So this is a preview of what you're going to find in search engines such as Google. So at the moment it's just written untitled, but if we change this page, this name, you can see how it updates in real time, and this is going to be exactly what you're going to see on Google. So really useful to always create custom title tags which are relevant to that specific page. And if you add some lorem ipsum to this mix, you can see how we can change also the description. So we can create a description which is enticing and useful for the users, and this is going to take care of the SEO settings, which are going to be of course very useful. And once you're done with all of this, you can click on save. You can also save as a draft if you click on the arrow. And if you want to close, you're not going to be able to retrieve this information I just changed. So we're just going to click on save for the time being. Let's use the cogwheel again. And I want to show you two more elements. The first one is going to be the duplicate feature. So if you want to quickly duplicate this page and change something in the page, it's going to be the easiest way to do it. And you can also delete the page. You can also decide a parent folder. Now, one thing that I want to notice about the parent folder is that, for example, if we add it here in this folder called landing, the URL structure is also going to change, since we're going to have /landing/sample. So bear this in mind, and especially watch out for those 404 errors if you're redoing a site and you're going to need to match the structure. So this is going to be really useful for on-page SEO and relevant sections. So far we talked a lot about the different elements, but now let's explore in more details this whole section on the right. So first of all, you can see that here on the top we do have a few options, and this one is going to enable you to undo any action which you did, so you can go back. It's almost like using Command V, And essentially on here you can see if you have saved or unsaved changes. So this is going to change to a check mark whenever you have saved changes. And one of the great features about Webflow is the ability to export the code. So if you click on export code, you're going to be able to see over here that you can export the HTML, CSS, JS, which is JavaScript, and of course the assets. Now you're going to need to upgrade your account if you want to export your site, and you can see pretty much like the code loading up over here. So this is where you're going to see the code. I'm not going to stay here a whole lot, but basically here you're going to be able to see the code and toggle between the different code. So over here we already explored the class tags, and here we can find also the layout. So if you want to change this to from block element, which is the default, you can change it to using Flexbox over here. So for example, if we selected this container and for whatever reason want to change it to Flexbox, we pretty much have all of the different elements of Flexbox. We won't go too much into the details of these since they would require a tutorial in and of itself, and also some previous understanding of CSS, Flexbox, and also grids and things of that nature. So we're just going to talk about the high level. Here you can move the margins, or actually add margins, and padding as well. So it's very easy, very intuitive. And if you wanted to make these changes all at once, you can simply use the Option Alt key, and as you can see, you can easily basically create the padding both on the top and on the bottom of the section. And using the Option Alt key plus Shift enables you to change the padding on all of these, and that would be true also for the margin, except that for the container have auto width on the sides. Over here you can also change the width and basically all the size of the elements. So you can change the width. So for example, if I want this to be 150 pixels, I can simply set it here. Same for the height. If I want this to be 200 pixels for whatever reason, I can set it over here. And you can also set the values for the minimum width and the minimum height, and also set the maximum width and the maximum height. Here you can also set the overflow. So for whatever reason you want this to be hidden, you can set it like that. And here you're going to have access to pretty much all of the typography. So let's create a text block, which you can easily do right here. You can easily change the typography over here, and so basically the font. You can set the weight. So if you want this to be bold, for example, you can set it like that. You can increase the size of this. We're just going to give it a little bit of breathing room over here. You can also set the height between different sentences from here, and of course the color and the different type of alignments, and some other decorations such as can italicize, stroke through, and all sorts of other different things. Now another important thing to consider is the backgrounds. So you can easily change the background directly from here. You can add more or less opacity. This is going to be helpful several instances in your Webflow journey. If we actually apply a background back, you can also set the corner radius. So you can see over here that we have this radius applied to this background, and also borders. So if you want borders to be particularly big, you can do it like that. And yeah, that would be it when it comes to these main borders. Let's undo a few times, and let's talk about some other things which could be useful in your journey. So for example, you can add a box shadow. So over here you can change the distance, add a little bit of a blur, you can make it less opacity in order to make it stand out a little bit more. And then here there are some other essential elements which are a little bit more nuanced. They're gonna take a little bit more time to explore. So we're going to probably cover this in another video. And over here you have the publish. So basically this is how you publish your Webflow on the internet. So you're going to need to connect a domain, and once that is good, usually you also have a staging domain, which is the webflow.io. And if you check on this check mark and you click on publish to select the domains, this is going to take a moment and upload everything onto the cloud. And if you click on this icon right here, you're going to see the live website. Now, the reason why I have a 404 is because I haven't published this. So let me do this, and I'm going to actually publish it live on the on this domain which Webflow created for me. I can in the meantime continue working on other things, and so for example, let's explore in the meantime these other elements. Here you can basically change the element settings ID. So if you want to apply an ID to an element, you can do it from here. And here you have the style manager, which is going to comprehend all of the classes which are applied. Now you can see that there is a difference between these pink classes and these blue, and these pink classes are the global classes. So these are, for example, the ones applied to all H1s, all H2s, all H3s, all the links, and all the body. And these ones are instead classes which you created, so these are custom classes, and yeah, that's pretty much it. You can also click on cleanup, and Webflow is going to clean up the classes according to his logic. So basically unused classes for the very most part. And over here you can find the interactions, but again, this is going to require an entire video in and of itself. In the meantime that we discussed this, you can see how Webflow published this. So you're going to be able to simply refresh. You're going to find the web page that we just built. Now we're going to, now that we have a good understanding of Webflow as a whole, I'm going to share with you a video which I recently shot, where I'm sharing the top tools which I personally used each and every time I create a Webflow website in order to speed up the process significantly, since starting everything from scratch is not really ideal, especially as you're working on larger projects and dealing with multiple clients. So these are, in my personal opinion, really useful tools. Some are free, some are paid, but the price just gives you like a tremendous ROI, in my opinion. So I'm definitely really strong about it. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, just a brief disclaimer. So yeah, it's just tools that I personally really enjoy using, and that makes my Webflow workflow a breeze. So let's go with the video. Hey guys, Bridgie here, and in this video I want to share with you 3 very useful tools and add-ons for Webflow so that you can make your workflow more efficient and faster. So the very first one, which I highly recommend you to start whenever you're kickstarting a new Webflow project, is by using the ClientFirst Webflow style system. And this is a system which has been created by FinSuite, and it's going to enable you to create a very clean page structure and class system, so that all of your Webflow efforts are going to be with a solid foundation. So as you can see over here, we're on the main website, and you can click here on Learn ClientFirst with docs and videos, and it's basically going to give you a bird's eye perspective as to how ClientFirst really works. So highly recommend you to check out this page and the videos, whatever format you prefer. If you're more into reading it throughout, you can simply go on the different sections, but there's also a lot of really useful videos that are going to teach you everything that you need to know in a pretty efficient and fast way. Now, that being said, this is what I use for each and every Webflow website these days to create a strong foundation, so that I know that at least the page structure and the class systems, all that stuff is going to be taken care of. But when it comes to actually building the website in Webflow, I'm actually using two resources these days which are really speeding up the process. And I'm also going to share an extra tip at the very end. And the very first resource is going to be the Relium library. So as you can see, we're here on the Relium website, and they actually are an agency, as far as I understood, where they create websites for clients. But what they did recently is they launched this library of components, which as far as I understood, they personally used and developed over the past years in order to kickstart their Webflow projects. So this is actually built with practicality in mind, and this is really good because a lot of the times, and I'm talking about design, you would find these UI kits which aren't really practical to use when it comes to actually implementing it for a client workflow. So this is really good, and I just love these components, since they are used almost as wireframes. So they're structured in a way where it's very easy to lay down the basic structure of the component, and then you can basically modify the designs as to what style you're using for your specific web design. So as you can see over here, we have a lot of components with a lot of different variations, which is key whenever you're creating a custom solution for a client, because you might like what a specific solution is in a UI kit, but maybe you need a variation of that same component. So this is really, really useful. And as you can see on the top, you also have different filters. So the way that it works is, say that you need, for example, a new footer. You can select the footer components and you're going to see all of the footers, of course. But these filters really make it bring it to a next level, because you can select only footers with 3 columns, for example, or 4 columns. So this is going to give you a level of granularity in your research, which is definitely going to speed up the process, and it's going to bring a lot of options on the table. Now, on top of that, I really like the fact that they're creating these wireframes. But one more tool which I'm using these days and that I feel is really useful in some instances is the flow-based components. Now, these components are much more geared towards like final designs, so they're not really like wireframe. It doesn't have like this wireframe feeling to it, but it feels like a finished design product. So in some instances they're going to work great. In other ones you're probably going to have to tweak them a little bit more. But all in all, you can simply like go and see the preview of the design. And some of these, they're just like really well thought out. Like imagine creating this menu from scratch. I mean, it's going to take quite a bit of time, but say that you have a project where you need something very similar. You can simply copy and paste this real quick. Takes like a second, and then you can adjust simply the typography and the icons, and if you need to add or remove menu items, and you're pretty much set. So this is really useful. And on top of this, one more thing which I recommend you to consider is also using WEBFLOW themes. Now in the past I wasn't really too keen in using WEBFLOW themes, but for some specific clients, this could be the best way to kickstart a project if they don't have maybe a lot of time that they want to invest in the design, or if you just want to kickstart a project in a fast way. And specifically, I really like the themes from Flowbased. There's a bunch more on the WEBFLOW theme marketplace, but these ones, I feel that they're really just well structured and well thought out. And also one more thing which I really like is the fact that they have the Figma file. So this is really useful because, for example, you can download the theme in the Figma file. You can create the design, update it, and move the components around, and then go to WEBFLOW and basically leverage the coded versions. So again, this is going to really depend on the client. Most of my work, for example, these days is 100% custom, so we're not really using theme all that much, but definitely something to consider. So hope this video was helpful, and yeah, that's pretty much it, and I'll see you in the very next